Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video. Couple of quick announcements. The 24th of January coming up very quickly is Tesla's Q4 and full year financial results meeting held here at Giga Texas. Make sure you check it out. A lot of great information will be coming. I'm a little bit melancholy about this one because normally I listen to Rob Maurer and Tesla Daily for the analysis and also his great recaps. But as you know, Tesla Daily has ended, so it's kind of a little bit melancholy for me, but I do wish Rob all the best in his next endeavors. Also, you may note this is a rare flight for me, not on my Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's because this time of year, Giga Texas and this area of Texas has a very strange weather. As you can tell here, we have a lot of rain and inclement weather forecast. So I'm trying to be very flexible with my schedule. So I hope you bear with me as I try to adjust to conditions.
Clear to start rotation at 100 RPM.
Yes, indeed. Boring Company is here at Giga Texas, and I wanted to do a detailed discussion about what's going on. And I would like to acknowledge the help and assistance of these people. Will at A Boring Revolution. Two of my YouTube viewers that are experts in the field, David Salisbury 50 and Tunneling Salisbury 7605. Patreon's Desi Doolin and Harder NL, and of course some excerpts from the Boring Company. What we're talking about here is actually the Prufrock 3, and it was set up and tested close to here at the Boring Company facility at Bastrop, Texas, and this will be the first operation of this machine for a commercial project. Putting together some of the great inputs that I've received, let's take a look at the equipment being set up here at Giga Texas. This is the pit that we saw formwork, rebar, and concrete work underway the last several days. You can also see the drill head being installed. The four eyes cast into the concrete block are behind the tunnel boring machine and are support connections for the thrust frame, which provides the reaction to the forward thrust as the tunneling commences. Now, a few days ago, I got a picture of this close-up of the thrust frame to the first segment. And from this, the thrust passes through from the tunnel boring machine rams and supports the entire operation. I was also fortunate to see this large truck arriving on my previous video, and you can get a good sense of the size. This delivery looks like the middle shield of the tunnel boring machine, which carries the forward propulsion ram, articulation rams, and the support to the erector for the building of the segments. This is another shot that I took on that same day, and you can see the middle shield being lifted for installation. The cutting head is already in place on the ground. And according to my sources, there'll probably be a third section to come, the tail shield, where the segments get built into it, but it may be part of the middle shield. I think it will be a third section arriving. This is a good close-up of the tunnel boring machine cutter head, and it appears to be dressed with rocker picks and mainly used for soft ground excavation where there's little or no rock. And this is very different than what we see at the Vegas loop because it has a lot more rock out there. And then this shows the overall setup. On the left, you can see the start of the assembly of the belt cassette or the conveyor, and this removes the spoils or the dirt from the tunnel during the tunneling process. We also see the setup of the cement siles and mixtures for the grout, and this will be used to line the tunnel walls on the outside of the concrete liners during the construction. I still don't have any documentation or permits for this construction project, but fortunately my contributors that have experience in the field have provided a lot of great insights. So I'm going to show you what they have suggested based on what they see. Now, this shows the setup for the tunnel drilling. It's on the west side. You can tell with that yellow band approximately where that tunnel will go. And based on my contributors' inputs, they think that the project is about 2 to 4 weeks from when it starts tunneling. And that is in that distance that you can see on the right-hand side with that arrow. And that's about 300 meters or about 1,000 feet between the marks of that silt fence and the perimeter grade beam of the main building. Now, if it goes into the building, it will be longer than this particular distance. You can also see the depth of the tunnel under the highway is about 14 meters or 55 feet. And that's fairly standard, or maybe it will be a slightly deeper tunnel. Now, there's an interesting observation about the depth of the tunnel underneath the highway, and that has to do with the water table here at Giga Texas. Also, the soil around this area, which is mostly sand and gravel with a underlying clay deposit. Now, the tunnel, as it looks like it's being built here, is probably going to be about 3 meters or maybe 10 feet below the water table once it's completed. And this is going to be something that the Boring Company and Tesla will have to deal with. Now, we've already seen a lot of water management systems being installed on the opposite side of the highway, so perhaps that's part of that mitigation process. And just to help put more into context the area that this tunnel is being built, I did a series of historical slides in July of 2023. I'm going to use 2 of them here. This is from 2005 when the highway was under construction, and you can see the approximate location of the boring tunnel. Also take a look between then and the 2009 when the highway was done, how much more of the sand and gravel mining was underway in this area. Again, you can see a good representation of where the tunnel and Giga Texas is currently located. One of the things about that water table, if you look at a lot of the depressions around this area, there's a lot of water that seeped in to make the pond. So that is why the water table is an issue that they need to make sure that they take into account. Here's a few other data points you might find informative. Prufrock 2 is supposed to be able to do 1,600 meters or about a mile a week. Prufrock 3 is aiming to increase that by 7 times. Now, most of the experts I talk to think that that's unrealistically large for a variety of reasons, one of which is the conveyor belt system in this confined tunnel may not be able to keep up. And here's an example. Taking a look at this example tunnel segment, about 20,100 cubic meters or about 710,000 cubic feet of dirt would have to be moved a week. If you did 24/7 operations, which is not completely realistic, that's about 120 cubic meters per hour, or looking at the weight of the soil, assuming sand is about 1.5 tons per cubic meters, that's about 180 tons of dirt per hour. A few other things to consider. Tunnel boring machines don't normally run 24/7 because of the high maintenance involved. Usually they have 2 10-hour shifts. 4 hours of the rest of the day is maintenance, and then they work 6 days a week with the other day used for heavy maintenance of these machines. And trying to run a boring machine harder than this will probably result in many major breakdowns, so they want to avoid that. A couple other thoughts. A 4 to 5 meter diameter tunneling records are about 1,800 meters per month, 125 meters a day, and 470 meters in a week. The Boring Company may be using this opportunity to try to show what the Prufrock can actually do and maybe secure additional projects around Austin as well. So there you have it. A pretty good look at what is going on here at Giga Texas with the boring machine, some of the setup, and some of the things to be looking forward to. So let's get into the drone. Let's fly around the site and see what Giga Texas looks like today. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Well, welcome to a nice weekend flight here at Giga Texas. I flew today rather than on Monday because, as I mentioned in the intro, a lot of rain is headed this way, so it's probably not going to be a great day to fly on Monday. But let's start here on the west side, taking a look at how this entire side looks today. The warehouse on wheels, the expansion with all of that gravel, the roadway, and of course this contractor parking lot that has been emptied out, and they're now using the new one here on the far southwest. As you can tell, the clearing next to it continues to have earthwork done. Some work has been to bring dirt in, and some of it's been spreading it around. The grade is a little bit different, so it's something I'll be monitoring. I'll bring a drone down here and you can get a good look at this former or not really used now parking area. So we'll see if they decide to do any construction here in the near future. Now, something of note here is some of the superchargers on the left-hand side of the screen have now been moved, and we'll see those being installed at the south end of the end of line building here shortly. But this gives you a good look at all the materials being stored here right now. The fence around the gravel section for that warehouse on wheels on the right, more of the asphalt that has been installed and basically finishing out a large section of this new outbound lot. And we also see the beginnings of a road here at the bottom left for the very first time, as well as some of the curbs and other work that's being done to prepare this part for asphalt. The final area of trenching for the lighting system is being worked on right now. You can actually see some of the conduit going through this northbound trench, and also kind of get a sense for how it connects throughout this entire north section. And of course, to the left is where it goes over to the main factory to bring the power to this side of the facility. And a good look at some of the work here on the east side of the building as well. I'm going to fly back over the building, get closer in. You can get a good sense of where the windows are getting ready to be put in on that kind of jutting out section of the building. And of course, more of the work that is being done here next to the building itself. We have some more trenching. Looks like some form work for some maybe sidewalks next to the building on the left. Again, another curb section, and we can see where the asphalt is continuing to widen towards the building. And I would think that as soon as most of the plumbing work and the rest of the detail work next to the building is done, we'll see that asphalt completely over towards the building. Now, as I mentioned, the superchargers are now starting to be installed. Kind of get a sense of how this is going to be organized. It looks like 2 banks, and each bank right now, it looks like 16 superchargers. So we'll see how it continues to develop throughout this section. But this whole thing should have a canopy on top of it once it is completed. But it's great to see that the superchargers are now starting to be installed. This should be a really great addition to the end-of-line operations that they currently don't have on the east side. So anyway, another good view here from a different angle of how this South End supercharger mega station is starting to develop. Now, as I look down towards the south, we'll see the boring operation is well underway. We'll get some really good views here in a second, but some more of the boring components on the bottom left have been delivered. Some of those concrete liner sections, that ring on the left that we talked about earlier in the introduction of the video. And as I maneuver the drone over towards the cement silos and this section where the grout will be prepared, we see another looks like a trailer that has had some of the walls taken off being set up. That may be part of the generation system to provide power for the Prufrock. We also were flying right over that belt cassette or the conveyor system that is getting ready to be installed. And we can also see with this zoom in the work that is being done in the pit, some new changes using some of these concrete blocks to line the area where the next part of the Prufrock will be assembled. And you can see the tarps on some of the parts that would be internal to that Prufrock once it's completely installed. But here's a good view of how the midsection and the cutting head have been assembled now. The crane is no longer here, probably temporarily, until they get the other part of the Prufrock here. Nearby, the excavator is moving some dirt in and around the sides of this section and preparing it for when operations begins. And I just hope that you enjoyed this quick view, 360-degree flight around to get a good sense of how the Prufrock 3 assembly process is going right now as they prepare for the tunnel operations. And we can look across that highway and you can see where that tunnel will eventually come out next to the south end of the building. And I'm going to fly towards the north along the highway, just giving you a different look at a slightly different altitude of the entire west side of Giga Texas. Obviously the main entrance and how it looks, and next to it we see where the end of line for the Model Y is between that two sections of the receiving doors with all of the trailers, and also that ramp that has been removed in the middle of the screen. And we'll get some closer views here of that shortly now that we've come across the highway. So I'm going to get closer in towards the building. We'll fly to the south, and first we'll stop and take a look at this old ramp and the walls that have been removed. Not really any change. It does look like a temporary wall or door has been installed, probably because of all of the cold weather and the rains that are about to hit this area, and the reason why I'm flying here on the weekend rather than on Monday. As we get closer to this section, you see a Model Y coming out of the factory using that black ramp. A few more of the Model Ys, and right now the production is coming to an end for the weekend, and it will resume Monday. Hopefully the weather won't be too much of an impediment for production. Good view of the West Main entrance. And let's continue to fly to the south, and let's take a look at some of the activity. There is a lot of activity going on here on the south end. No Cybertrucks on the west side here that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. On the top of the platform, you can tell that they have kind of a temporary enclosure with some of that black material on some of the scaffolding, and that's again probably because of the weather that we're having. The perimeter grade beam work with some of the footings continues next to this corner of the building. We also see that yellow section on the wall getting ready for the textured surface, and then that will be painted over or stained with that white stain. Here's a good look at where it's possible the boring tunnel may come out and might be just going along that end of the building. And I'll give you a closer look at some of the concrete work and form work that is going on that section, which may hint at the purpose and the relation with the boring tunnel. So as I pull away, I will give you a good view here of the southwest side, how that perimeter grade beam has nearly been completed, and it's tracing out the new end of the walls. And also the second crane is up and ready for operations. More of the steel has been delivered here next to the angled corner of that perimeter grade beam. More steel being arranged for pickup. And of course now we see some of that steel being picked up in 3 at a time. This is the giant steel wind chime that I used to call when Giga Texas was being constructed. So it's kind of good to see that going on again today. But I will zoom in and give you a good view here shortly of how that looks and kind of get an idea of the scale by looking at the size of the steel workers that are waiting for those very large and extremely heavy beams to arrive. And these people do amazing work, and they definitely have nerves of steel. And also to be able to handle all of the cold weather, because it is pretty cold today. Just amazing the work that they do. Now as I pivot towards the southeast, I did notice that the windows are being installed today. A couple of the crates have been moved. One of them is empty. The other one is being emptied on the left-hand side of the screen. And you can see that 3 more of those large panes have been installed, and the next one is just now being picked up out of that crate and getting ready to be installed. So most likely those 6 panels will be completed by Monday, and then depending on the weather on Monday, we'll see how that continues. It does also look like there may be 2 rows of that glass pane. So this entire south end of the building may be just a giant glass wall. So pretty interesting to see that new design element being added to Giga Texas. Of course, more of the steel down at the bottom of the screen waiting for its installation. And as I fly back over the power lines, I'll bring the drone down and give you a good look here at the 4 tanks that are now being assembled. You can see more of the steel items on the right-hand side of the screen waiting for their assembly. But as we've talked about before, we don't know exactly what the tanks are, but they're being built and welded together here on site on that particular slab. On the roof, I'll give you a good view here, again, where they've removed the weatherproof membrane, the insulation panels, and the roof decking. Looks like they've extended it further to the north, and there's that another section that has had all of that material removed, getting ready for the roof deckings to be removed. And you can see where it's being stored next to the wall here on the east side. So let's fly back up over the power lines and let's get a good view of how the multi-level parking garage is continuing to develop. It's reached its northernmost point on the left-hand side of the screen. On the right-hand side of the screen, we can see how it's continuing to extend towards that new section where all of the footings and some of the concrete substructure has been completed. And it's a really good view of how that looks. Also, here on the east side, that road that I've been telling you that was coming is really starting to shape up. You can see where the medians are being formed, and of course where the road surface, and we get a good view of how this is going to go around this new structure. As I come back in closer, another good view of the footings and the substructure here in the middle. The extension on the left that is continuing to develop to the east, and all of those rebar mesh that's been put on the roof that's getting ready for eventually concrete to be poured to finish that section out. So let's proceed over towards the testing and calibration lot, and let's take a look at some of the activity here on this weekend shift. And a lot of Model Ys produced, and they're all being tested, calibrated, and getting ready to be moved over to the outbound lot. There are a few Cybertrucks in this lot. And fortunately, when we get over to the outbound lot, we're going to see a lot of them getting ready for movement. There's more work on the concrete aprons next to these new receiving doors. And this is how it looks today. I really am looking forward to seeing the concrete replaced on that one section. In the middle bottom of the screen, we see the work that's continuing for the electrical cables going through the conduit. And then here, I'll point the drone down and we can see these two tanks and also the generators. And it looks like the devices to move maybe some of the material that's in the tank. I think it's liquid natural gas, and it may be to help with the operation and testing of the new furnace, possibly the gassing machines too. Maybe the actual LNG line is disconnected or turned off for this moment in time. That's why they have those tanks. So let's fly over to the outbound lot where I'll give you a good view around the site and we can get a good sense of the activity. A lot of Model Ys and Cybertrucks all kind of mixed together now. And we've been seeing this new approach for the last several weeks. Looks like there's probably about 20 Cybertrucks throughout this entire outbound lot. And you can see that trucks are still busy picking up the vehicles. Right now, there's more vehicles arriving in the top of the screen, and more trucks will be arriving and then departing full of vehicles, trying to get all of them out and hopefully to customers at some point in the near future. Again, it's difficult to tell based on the slices of time how much the Cybertruck production is, but I would say it's probably close to that 8 to 9 per hour, which would be somewhere around 100 per day. And continue to watch that and see. But as you know, we've had the VIN number 1000 Cybertruck delivered already to customers. At the die shop on the left and the battery cathode plant on the right, in the middle is that alleyway where there's a lot of activity with the concrete. First, I want to show you that all the windows on this southeast corner, except for that door which has that blue tarp, have been installed now. Within the alleyway, we see these couple of sections that are getting concrete poured and finishing out this section, and they continue to work their way towards the north. And I know the crews are really going to be happy when all the concrete and the asphalt is in, so it can help control all the mud that happens around this area with all of the rains, especially what we're going to see on Monday. As I bring the drone up, I'll give you a good bird's eye view down onto the chiller plant. And it looks like there's a new enclosure with plastic wrap on the left. It looks like they also have some brown tarps over some equipment on the left. And of course, the section with the plastic on the right, keeping that all kind of enclosed right now. So let's fly up over the cathode plant. I'll bring the drone back down and give you a good view of the east side of the plant today. Bring the drone down lower, we'll fly over the crash test facility. You can get a good sense of how it looks here on the south end. They have those tarps up. Hopefully they're able to keep it warm for the people working in there and free of all the rain. On the right, we see more of the work in that water detention pond and some more of the crash tested Cybertrucks here on the north side. That clearing on the left-hand side of the wade pit hasn't had any changes in the last couple of days. And of course, all of the work on the far northeast. But because of conditions, I'm not going to fly up there today. I'd rather show you this. Next to the cell testing and recycling lab, we see those red supports as part of that bridge crane that at the end of my previous video we saw being delivered here to this site. And these look like they may be the legs and part of the bridge crane, but I'm not sure exactly what part of the factory those are going to be installed. On the north end of the cathode plant, we see continued excavation on the left. The lift station looks like it's mostly complete, and this pit in the middle of the asphalt seems to be filled in now. So continues to see progress here. So I'm going to bring the drone up higher. We're going to fly over to the electrical switch yard, and we'll take a look at some of the work and how it looks near the Megapack today. The smaller temporary electrical switch yard is completely disconnected and being decommissioned. The much larger electrical switch yard is obviously fully operational, and all of the connections here on the north end through the conduit under the trenches to the north end of the Megapack site are all completed. Now at the Megapack site, I'll bring the drone down and we'll take a look again, but the disconnects are still not connected. Those are those 3 bars kind of angled away. If they were connected, they would be more vertical, and those kind of pads on either side would be where the disconnects contact, and that would energize the system, but still not energized today. It does look like there was some work being done on the south end of that section, so continuing to make final changes or final connections until it's ready for it to be energized. Hopefully that'll be soon. As we cross over Tesla Road, I'll bring the drone down and show you where on this parking lot the work continues in the concrete vault with all of the electrical wires being fed through the conduit, and that will extend all the way over to these concrete boxes on the right and then through this entire berm area. It's a good view of how that berm area continues to be widened closer and closer to that access road. And of course, there's a lot more castings. All of these are Cybertruck castings for the most part on the ground all throughout this entire section. And there's even more being stored next to these trailers and this loading platform on the left. I did notice that today there are 6 Model Y bodies, so I'll give you a good close-in view. It does look like all of these have floors, so these would not be using the structural pack, and it would be most likely for 2170 batteries, which is what we have heard is only going on to the Model Ys here at the factory right now, and all of the 4680s are being reserved for the Cybertruck. See some more deliveries to the plastics manufacturing section on the left, and here where the 4680 section is continuing to have build out inside to expand. Looks like got some more steel beams. Those look like they may be rails for a bridge crane and some other equipment, but most of the work is on the inside. So there you have it, a view here on the weekend. As I mentioned, because of rain coming, I'm not going to be flying on Monday, but I hope that you enjoyed the intro, the discussion of the boring machines and how it's being installed here, and everything else we were able to see helpful. Have a great week.